Welcome to our immigration briefing show. Today, we're diving into some lively updates around the world of immigration and border policies. First up, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has taken down a controversial list of sanctuary jurisdictions after facing a storm of criticism. The list, which aimed to identify localities perceived as uncooperative with federal immigration enforcement, was riddled with errors and included communities that actively oppose sanctuary policies or had filed lawsuits challenging their status. DHS officials are now reviewing the list, which might be updated soon, but the controversy highlights ongoing tensions between federal and local authorities. Next, let's talk about the UK, where the number of migrants arriving by small boats across the English Channel has hit a new high for 2024. Over 1,100 migrants arrived in just one day, marking a 42% increase compared to last year. The surge puts immense pressure on the government, which is now focusing on dismantling smuggling gangs and working more closely with France. Despite efforts to curb crossings, many migrants see the UK as a land of opportunity, especially for those seeking safety or family reunification. The situation remains challenging, with thousands arriving each month. Finally, in Ukraine, life under Russian occupation continues to be perilous. Over 3.5 million residents in occupied territories have been coerced into accepting Russian passports, a move seen as part of Moscow's strategy to extend its influence and undermine Ukrainian sovereignty. People like Irina, a Ukrainian woman, have had no choice but to comply with the forced passport campaign, despite their resistance. This ongoing geopolitical struggle underscores the complex and often dangerous realities faced by Ukrainians living in occupied zones. Please continue to watch for more detailed stories on these compelling topics. The Associated Press reports on the removal of a controversial list of over 500 sanctuary jurisdictions from the Department of Homeland Security's website, following widespread criticism and confusion. The list, initially published to identify communities allegedly non-cooperative with federal immigration enforcement, was riddled with errors and inconsistencies, including listing cities like Huntington Beach, which had actively challenged state sanctuary laws, and confusing counties' votes on gun rights with immigration policies. Critics argued the list lacked clarity and fairness, with some officials, such as Jim DeVell from Shawano County, suggesting clerical errors or misinterpretations, highlighting the chaotic nature of the administration's approach to immigration enforcement and the political tensions surrounding sanctuary policies. The Toronto Star delves into the cultural and psychological challenges faced by migrant families in Australia, especially concerning children's mental health and behavioral issues. It shares the story of Wing Shu, who, after relocating from Hong Kong, was shocked to discover her daughter's ADHD diagnosis, a condition often misunderstood or stigmatized in migrant communities. Experts emphasize that parents frequently misattribute neurodevelopmental disorders to cultural differences or adaptation struggles, which can hinder early intervention. The article highlights the importance of culturally sensitive mental health education, community engagement, and open conversations to normalize mental health issues, advocating for a shift away from stigma and towards understanding and support within diverse cultural contexts. The ABC discusses the broader implications of mental health awareness among migrant families in Australia, illustrating how cultural stigma and language barriers impede recognition and treatment of conditions like ADHD and depression. It features stories of individuals like Takeo Kamioka, who battled depression in silence due to cultural taboos, and Reshma Manandhar, who actively promotes open dialogue about mental health in her community. The article underscores the need for tailored mental health resources, community-based initiatives, and culturally responsive education to bridge gaps in understanding and support. Organizations like AIMS Australia are working to normalize mental health conversations and provide accessible resources, emphasizing that fostering openness and reducing stigma are crucial steps toward better mental health outcomes for migrant populations. The Toronto Star vividly recounts the harrowing experience of Saifullah Khan, an Afghan refugee and Yale alumnus, who was violently detained by ICE agents outside a federal court in Hartford. Witnesses describe how plainclothes agents confronted Khan without identification, and how he was tasered 7 times while trying to seek judicial assistance. This incident prompted a federal court order limiting ICE's authority to arrest and detain individuals within federal court buildings, reflecting growing concern over the aggressive enforcement tactics targeting non-citizens and the safety of court proceedings. The order specifically restricts arrests to non-judicial areas and emphasizes safeguarding the integrity of judicial processes amid fears that immigration enforcement could undermine court safety and fairness, especially since immigration courts are operated by the executive branch and not part of the judiciary. The South China Morning Post explores how recent U.S. immigration policies are influencing Chinese parents' decisions regarding international education. With the Trump administration tightening restrictions, such as revoking visas linked to the Communist Party and scrutinizing social media, families are reconsidering the value of investing in U.S. higher education. Parents like Huang Qiuping from Shanghai are now contemplating alternatives like Canada or Japan, citing concerns over legal stability, employment prospects, and the high costs associated with U.S. universities. While some still see the U.S. as a desirable destination, many are shifting their focus to Commonwealth countries, reflecting a broader trend of skepticism driven by political uncertainty and stricter visa regulations, which are especially challenging for PhD candidates in high-tech fields. The Associated Press reports that the UK faces an unprecedented surge in migrants crossing the English Channel, with over 1,100 arrivals in a single day, an all-time high for 2025. This surge underscores the ongoing strain on UK border controls and the challenges faced by French authorities in intercepting boats in shallow waters. Despite efforts to strengthen international cooperation and enforce tougher legislation, the route remains a favored pathway for migrants fleeing conflict and poverty, drawn by family ties, language, or perceived ease of access to asylum. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government aims to dismantle the smuggling networks fueling this crisis, but the persistent increase in crossings highlights the complexity of managing migration in one of the world's busiest shipping lanes, with over 36,000 arrivals already recorded in 2024, significantly higher than previous years. The CBC reports the harrowing reality faced by Ukrainians living under Russian occupation, exemplified by Irina and her husband's story. For over 3 years, they navigated a perilous existence, constantly fearing shelling, drone strikes, or interrogation at gunpoint as they crossed checkpoints in Kherson. The situation became unbearable when local stores closed, and grocery access was only possible through Russian-controlled checkpoints, pushing many to accept Russian citizenship under duress. Moscow's campaign of mass passport distribution, justified by staged referendums and illegal annexations, aims to erode Ukrainian sovereignty, coercing residents into compliance. Human rights groups have documented the dangerous consequences of this policy, including denial of essential services and threats of detention, illustrating Russia's broader geopolitical strategy to solidify control over occupied territories through intimidation and legal manipulation. CNN highlights the recent cancellation of Grupo Firme's performance in California due to the U.S. government's suspension of their visas, a move linked to broader efforts by the Trump administration to scrutinize and restrict Mexican artists who glorify cartel violence in their music. The band, renowned for their energetic Mexican regional hits, faced this setback amid controversy over narco-corridos, songs that sometimes depict cartel leaders as Robin Hood figures, prompting U.S. officials to justify visa revocations as a crackdown on criminal glorification. Despite the band's efforts to distance themselves from such content, the visa suspension underscores ongoing tensions over freedom of expression versus national security concerns, with the U.S. authorities aiming to curb cultural portrayals that may embolden or normalize criminal activity. The Yahoo U.S. article details a tense confrontation in Representative Jerry Nadler's Manhattan office, where DHS officers briefly detained a staff member amid protests outside an immigration courthouse. The incident, captured on video, revealed officers claiming to conduct a security check and alleging that staff were harboring rioters, despite lacking a warrant. The altercation reflects heightened tensions surrounding immigration enforcement under the Trump administration, with federal authorities clashing with Democratic lawmakers and their staff over policies that have sparked nationwide protests. This incident, occurring alongside arrests and protests related to immigration enforcement, exemplifies the escalating friction between government agencies and opposition figures, highlighting the contentious debate over immigration policies and federal authority. The Independent vividly reports on a series of dramatic raids carried out by ICE agents across Southern California, targeting underground nightclubs and Italian restaurants. In Los Angeles, agents stormed an undisclosed nightclub in the early hours, arresting 36 Chinese and Taiwanese nationals suspected of illegal residency, while a chilling video captures an officer preparing for the operation at dawn. Later that day in San Diego, agents stormed the Buona Forchetta restaurant, deploying flashbang grenades and swiftly detaining the entire staff, who were then subjected to ID checks and questioned about their immigration status amidst a shocked crowd. These raids, part of President Trump's Operation Safeguard, aim to crack down on undocumented immigrants in urban areas, showcasing the relentless and often startling enforcement tactics used to pursue this federal initiative. Tallahassee became a battleground of protests as over 150 people gathered outside the Florida Capitol, furious over a massive ICE raid that detained 100 individuals at a construction site. Demonstrators held up signs demanding, "Protect families, not tear them apart," voicing their opposition to what they see as aggressive deportation efforts under the Trump and DeSantis administrations. This large-scale operation marked one of Florida's most significant immigration sweeps since the state's enthusiastic participation in Trump's deportation policies, igniting a wave of public dissent and raising concerns about the human toll of such enforcement measures. Meanwhile, in Alabama, local law enforcement agencies in Lawrence and Limestone counties are seeking expanded authority to enforce federal immigration laws through the controversial 287(g) program. They have applied to ICE for the task force model, which would allow officers to make arrests and interrogate individuals suspected of being undocumented during routine police work, including without warrants in certain cases. Critics warn that such measures threaten community trust, risking increased racial profiling and deterrence from reporting crimes, especially among immigrant communities. Advocates and civil rights groups warn that these policies could lead to wrongful detentions, undermine public safety, and foster fear, with some fearing that the core mission of law enforcement to protect and serve is being overshadowed by immigration enforcement. The South China Morning Post reports on President Donald Trump's recent efforts to reassure international students amid mounting confusion over U.S. immigration policies. Despite earlier declarations that the administration would aggressively revoke Chinese student visas, particularly targeting those with ties to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields, Trump's comments aim to soften the message, emphasizing that foreign students should be fine and that the U.S. still welcomes talented individuals. The announcement by Secretary of State Marco Rubio about tightening visa scrutiny sparked protests from Beijing and outrage among Chinese students, who now face uncertain futures. Meanwhile, critics in the U.S., including the Global Times and some politicians, condemned the crackdown as a McCarthyism revival, accusing the U.S. of targeting Chinese nationals based on ideological bias, while others defended the move by highlighting concerns over espionage and influence operations. The Toronto Star shares a heartfelt story about Joanne Robertson's childhood experience at Camp Hiranda, a specialized camp for children with type 1 diabetes, which profoundly impacted her life. Diagnosed at age 4, Robertson's mother sent her there to give her a break from the relentless management of her condition. At camp, Robertson learned vital life skills, how to laugh through adversity, find support among peers, and develop a deep respect for nature. The camp, owned by Diabetes Canada, provided her with lifelong friendships and a sense of belonging that helped her navigate her health challenges. Robertson's gratitude extended to supporting the camp through donations, recognizing the importance of accessible, inclusive outdoor experiences for children with medical needs. Her story underscores how such camps foster resilience, community, and hope for children facing lifelong health conditions. Yahoo US reports on the surge in immigration-related arrests in Central Florida, driven by the Trump administration's intensified efforts to detain undocumented immigrants. The number of detainees held for immigration violations has skyrocketed by nearly 400% compared to last year, raising concerns about jail capacity and resource strain. Orange County's jail, one of the few authorized to hold ICE detainees, is nearing its maximum capacity, with officials warning of potential overcrowding and logistical challenges. The increase is largely due to federal authorities expanding warrants and enforcement actions, with daily arrests expected to reach 3,000, an aggressive target confirmed by White House officials. Local law enforcement agencies are calling for broader housing agreements to accommodate the influx, highlighting the broader infrastructure issues and the political push for stricter immigration enforcement that continues to impact communities across the region. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.